of goRIA, the live stream. I'm Chuck Failla. And first off, why the tux? Let me explain that. In a couple of hours, I'm heading down to New York City to take part of the inaugural Investment News Awards ceremony, which I'm really, really looking forward to. It's going to be a great night. A lot of big names, a lot of big companies will be there. And I actually have the honor of presenting this year's Lifetime Achievement Award, which I'm super excited about. It's going to be just a great night. And I'm sure I'll be doing some coverage of that via some live streams and some podcasts coming up in the coming weeks. But I did want to hop on real quick before I head down into the city tonight and share with you this recap video that we put together this week about last week's goRIA Virtual Summit and Masterclass. It was a great event. It came out as great as we were hoping it would. A lot of fantastic content, laser focused again on answering two questions. Why should you consider going RIA, and how can you go RIA? So we had just a real all-star lineup of folks. We were talking about different ways of going RIA, how to register your RIA, what will it cost to get your RIA registered, how to keep it compliant, how to market it, fee-based options for annuities and insurance and alternative investments and option strategies, all of which that do not need a Series 7. Some marketing advice on how to launch and create the narrative for your new RIA, or if you're going to tuck in with an existing one. And we closed with a really fantastic keynote with none other than Natalie Wolfson, who's the CEO of Orion. So it was a really great event, about 3 hours altogether. We kind of condensed a recap for you that I'm going to play in just a moment, down to about 10 minutes. And I'll give you a little taste of each one of those panels. If you like what you see, and especially if you're an advisor, looking to go RIA, really be able to listen to the whole thing. It's about 3 hours long. The link to the replay video is in the comment section here. And you could watch some of it. You could watch all of it. You could fast forward to the sections most of interest to you, but I would suggest it's really worth checking out. So I'm on my way to New York. I'll be reporting back on that in the coming weeks. But for now, take a listen to this 10-minute recap. It'll give you a good idea of what we talked about. And again, the link to the entire replay, 3 hours long, lots of great content, laser focused on how to go RIA is in the comments, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, and on behalf of goRIA, fueled by investment news, I'm Chuck Failla, and I'll see you next week. Thanks. Now, I know we've been doing a lot of talking off camera, a lot of prep for this, and I can't wait to jump right in. So we have about 45 minutes for this first session, so let's get right to it. And I'd like to start off, Preston, if you would, broadly, right? According to Cerulli, something like 37% of the broker-dealer advisors are thinking about breaking away to the RIA space. What's driving this?
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Freedom and flexibility, I think, are two ideal thoughts that come to mind right now, and how to deal with their clients. How to interact. What type of advice, financial advice, do they want to deliver?
Take advantage of the fact that you have these experts here with us. I'll be checking. If you see me looking here, I'm not like watching the sports scores or something. This is where I have my other screen for questions. So if you have any questions, put them into the Q&A. I'll relay them to the panelists thinking about tucking in versus building their own.
Yeah, and actually, I think there's more like 4 or 5 versions, but those are 2.
Okay, yeah.
If you think about the build, buy, or partner model, just in general in business, right? Are you going to build it? Are you going to buy it? Or are you going to partner? The one I think you were missing is you actually can buy one. I was talking to an advisor today that's looking to break away, and his model was, I think I would rather buy into something. And so that's a version 2. Not always doable for everybody, but it's a version. So
okay, great. So Dan, I want to stick with you a little bit and talk about kind of those initial things you want to think about as you're building your own RIA, but also if you're tucking in, which is the tech stack, right? What should I select as I'm building my tech stack if I want to build my own RIA? Or if I want to go the tuck-in route, how do I look at that existing RIA's tech stack to make sure it's right for me? What could you tell us?
Yeah, so I think the freedom with the tech stack is one of the most exciting realities when you go RIA, but it can also easily become one of the most overwhelming realities. If you look at the fintech map today, which if you're familiar with Michael Kitces, he's a big voice in our space. If you're listening right now, thinking about going RIA, he's got so much great content, but he has a fintech map and it's very popular and it's what fintech companies are excited about getting on, wealth tech companies as well. And it's huge. I mean, there's so many different categories. There's so many different pieces of technology. And I would argue, especially when you're starting out, like you only need maybe 1% of the entire map implemented into your business, maybe even less.
Successful panel.
And it starts with the
so
basics.
Jamie,
and then over
Diana, Preston, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you all within the next few weeks for a podcast. And thanks for doing that. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, everyone. Good luck.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Okay, great stuff. Man, what a great start for today. Okay, now we're going to move into compliance, as you can see here. So this next session is going to take us until, and let's talk about the broker protocol. Something that a lot of folks have heard of, not everyone fully understands. If you could give us a little couple sentences on what the protocol is and how does that play into me as an advisor looking to break away.
Yeah, and I always think, Chuck, it's a good way to have just a brief little history on what the heck is this protocol that we're talking about, because some folks might not know. So, when an advisor changes their firm, they need to understand the contractual and limitations and how those considerations are going to factor into that transition process. So one of those factors that can
the
change
SEC,
the
it just complicates matters. So I think if you're at that threshold near that 100 million, my advice generally is to wait to register with the SEC. States examine their advisors a lot more frequently than the SEC does. The SEC, knock on wood, cross your fingers, you only see them once every 5-10 years, maybe. Some firms go a lot longer than that. States, yeah, right. The states might be in there every 18 months, maybe more. So there's a lot more regulatory work with some of these states, not all, but some.
Yeah. Now, if only we had a Florida state regulator with us. Oh, wait, we do.
Yes.
Alicia, you have to have something to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ian's right on. One of the biggest things to note here is also timeline and how long it takes to get registered. With the SEC, once they have your full application for registration, your ADV, everything there, and it's submitted correctly, they have 45 days to approve you. So that it tends to be a pretty quick turnaround. I'm used to seeing it normally at about 30 days, normally about a month out, you'll get your approval and you're good to go. Or else they'll come back to you with questions. A state like Florida, they have a very different process. You have to submit contracts, like what your investment advisory agreement is going to be. You have to submit financial statements, all kinds of documentation. You have to have an interview, like kind of an interview discussion with the registration team there in the state of Florida. So it is a very lengthy and drawn out process. It's very informative.
Okay, there was one last question here, which I'll just answer quickly. The question was why, and I think they're referring to me, why would I custody with Raymond James and Schwab? The simple reason is we act as essentially a platform for advisors looking to go independent. And we have multiple custodians because some advisors that join us want to be on Schwab, some want to be on Raymond James, some came from both. So that's the reason why we would have it. If you're having more of like a lifestyle RIA, there's really not much of a reason to have more than one custodian. But if you're looking to act as a platform for other advisors, which is really what Sovereign does, that's the reason why you would have that. So I like it as the CEO because it gives us access to more advisors. The people at Sovereign that don't like it would be our chief compliance officer and our operations person because they have to deal with more custodians. But it does give our advisors more options and choice. So with that, Michelle, Alicia, and Ian, thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to getting you back on to do a podcast, which will show up in the next couple of months on goRIA.com. And we will see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Okay. All right. So great stuff so far here, Samantha. I get to take a little break here because this is going to be a solo gig for you. Hi. So look, if we have Samantha Russell with us, that means we are talking about marketing and who better to have for this. So I'm not going to eat up your time. I think we have you up until, let's see, 12:50. So I'm not going to eat into any of it. I'm going to hand it over to you and I'll be taking notes off camera about how to improve your marketing with your newfound freedom as an RIA. Samantha, thanks for doing this today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and put it in slideshow mode. All right. So you're going RIA. It's time to have some fun with your marketing. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Samantha Russell, the Chief Evangelist at FMG, and I have been helping advisors with their marketing for about a decade, talking about all the strategies and how to really see explosive organic growth, specifically really fast. You know, oftentimes you have a very limited budget. You want to make some big splashes when it comes to lead generation and converting prospects to clients, but you need to do it in a low cost way. So we're going to talk about that today. The first thing I just want to reiterate is no matter what kind of marketing you're doing, in the back of your mind, as you're crafting a social media post or you're going to send an email.
We've had a
or
lot of
you're
great
following up
audience
with someone.
participation on this particular event, which we love to see. Okay, so this event here is fee-based everything. And what we're going to talk about is the fact that when you're going RIA, you do not need to have a Series 7 anymore. You could, right? You could do a hybrid situation, which some people elect to do. I personally chose to drop my Series 7 in 24. And I will put forward this challenge to the audience as we're hearing from our panelists today. Try to think of something you think you need a Series 7 for that you would not be able to do without. And I promise you there's just nothing left that you need a Series 7 for, whether it's annuities or insurance or alternatives or option strategies or XYZ. There's nothing out there left that you need a Series 7 for. Put us to the test. Throw it in the chat box. If you think there's something you think you need a 7 for, we'll see if you can stump the panelists. So having said that, we have with us, and I'm going to just go clockwise from what I see here, Maisie Hughes, who's with Spider Rock Advisors, David Lau from DPL Financial Partners, and James Constable with iCapital. And we're going to do a little bit of a different format with this particular panel, where each of them are going to give us a really good look into their expertise with a bit of a mini presentation, about 10 minutes each.
Okay, so we're going to talk about annuities. And, one of the issues for advisors or firms thinking about breaking away has historically been, their annuities and their annuity book. And a couple of different questions there that people generally have is, one, can I bring my book with me? And then can I use annuities going forward in my practice if they're, an important part of your practice? And at DPL, we really have solutions for both of those things. We work with carriers across the industry. We've brought, more than 80 products to market that are, fee-based.
Mentioned the BlackRock Spider Rock partnership. Spider Rock Advisors, for a little tiny bit of background, not to spend too much time on it, but we are a derivatives asset manager founded in 2015, really founded as the brainchild of our CIO, which is that options are the best and in fact the only way to change risk outcomes or income needs in a portfolio for a taxable investor without incurring a tax bill day one. And he understood that there was a ton of applicability throughout the wealth advisory space, particularly for independent advisors that no longer had access potentially to that derivatives vertical at the bank where they've broken away from. And so that was his key insight. And he realized there's like
from across the independent and the RIA space. The AUM has grown at iCapital since our inception, a little over 10 years ago, and we're just shy of $190 billion of total capital. And I think what's important for advisors that are coming out of a wirehouse is, okay, well, what types of access will I have as an advisor to alternative investment strategies? And the answer is we have relationships at this point with nearly 600 general partners and issuers. And I'll kind of just touch on
there's Natalie.
The fact that we also...
Quite a day so far here today, Natalie. I got to tell you, a lot of great content, a lot of good information. So this is going to be our final session for today. We've already had really quite the day of content focused on how you can go RIA. So now what we're going to do is close today's event with a very special keynote fireside chat, as you can see, with Natalie Wolfson, who's the CEO of Orion. A mix of both. Now, with all that said for framework, Natalie, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you would start us off with that first part, which is how do you equip yourself with the resources and the tools for each stage of your journey?
Absolutely. So thanks for the question and welcome everyone to the final session of today's meeting. I'm really excited to talk to advisors who are in one stage of their journey or another about what it takes to continue to operate a firm that grows and thrives.